understand the media have to leave very quickly at some stage, but we are happy to have you, and we hope we can have more time with us. Ke a leboha. I should have asked Dr. Lachema to come in. Oh, it's not already. Okay.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, dear friends, great to be here to address the award winners and the judges and the MLELA project management and our friends from the media. Great to have you here. Thanks for coming, really. This is, I think, the grand finale, I could say, for us as the EU delegation for quite a number of projects that we have had over the last few weeks and months relating to climate change. So I've really felt these few last weeks that the climate change is really something that we are investing in, something important, and I can see also a lot of feedback from the whole society here in Botswana, which has been the whole idea, because climate change is a threat to our survival, and we need to do something about it. So it's great for me to be here to sort of close these many campaigns that we have had over the last few weeks, and in particular because I think today we will not only learn about what climate change is, but also how we can manage it, how we can tackle it, and that's going to be really interesting and important. So I'm very happy to be here to participate in the announcing then of the winners of the EU Youth Climate Challenge, where many bright ideas, I think, from young people have been forwarded to the organization and to the judges, and it's been supported then by the EU, by the EU delegation here in Botswana. So before I think we go into hearing more about the winners, I would like to say a few words nevertheless about what we as the European Union are doing about climate change here in the Southern African region, in Botswana, and also globally. So just mentioning then one of the projects that we've done was actually yesterday at the Terisano Primary School in Old Naledi, where I went yesterday morning to greet the students and also to the pupils, and also to plant a number of trees together with them in what was an awareness, you could say, an awareness project, because we think that we need to reach out to the young generations. They are, first of all, the ones that will suffer from climate change. They're also the ones that should sort of push on the adult generation and make things happen. So we went there to plant trees, and not because trees are nice, they are beautiful, they give shade and so on, but also, as you know, they suck up the carbon dioxide from the air. So it's very important to plant tree, both concretely but also symbolically, I think. That event followed on what we call the EU Beach Cleanup campaign, which we did a few weeks ago at the Gaborone Dam. It has mainly to do with environment in general, where we think that we need to address the issue of plastic in our oceans, and in the absence of oceans around here, we went to the Gaborone Dam, where the problem is equally important, and we picked and collected all the plastic garbage that was lying around. We also had the Green Art and Farmers Market together with Young Africa Botswana and the German Embassy to inspire people to take smart decisions that contribute to the fight against climate change. And also an important event was at the University of Botswana, where we had the Youth Climate Change Festival to create awareness and promote dialogue on climate change among the youth, and we had actually invited youth leaders from all around Botswana to participate and sort of create, for them was to create a better network on climate change. So these are some things that we have done locally here to raise awareness, and then of course we have today's event, the grand finale of all of this. We have called all of these activities the EU Climate Diplomacy Week, which is also a global initiative. So it's not only happening here in Botswana. We are of course doing all these activities in almost all countries around the world to raise awareness. I think it's very clear that here in the region climate change is already felt. We have had some extreme weather events that I think have been caused by climate change, like the cyclone Idai that struck Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Malawi. And I think as I speak now, Botswana is going through one of the worst droughts in its history, although we have luckily had some rains lately, but I think we are still statistically in a bad shape this year, and this will affect agriculture and wildlife. So for this more, on the bigger approach, the EU is active both inside Europe and on the global scene, investing a lot in mitigating and adapting to climate change. We ourselves have promised to cut domestic greenhouse gas emissions by at least 40% by 2030. And we are, as I said, investing a lot also in international cooperation on this. You had elections here not long ago, and there were elections also in Europe for the European Parliament. And I think the clearest result of that was a very strong strong message from the voters about climate change, about environment in general. And I think what was created was basically a green parliament, which will take a lot of interest in climate change issues and environment over its mandate of 5 years, putting a lot of pressure on the European Union institutions to do more on climate. And I can just say how we are now expecting also in our delegation a lot of orders coming out from the central institutions of the EU now when the new EU Commission is taking its seats. It's happening as we speak here now. The new EU Commission is being formed in Brussels, being agreed about in Parliament, getting it confirmed in Parliament as we speak, I think. So we expect a lot of new initiatives on climate change, and EU will invest. We're talking about 100 billion euros a year in climate finance by 2020 to support actions in developing countries, and this could also, I think, have an effect here in the region. From my office, we have recently signed with SADC program, climate-related program worth almost 200 million pula, and that is just the start. I think one could say that the EU is then taking responsibility beyond its own generation of these climate greenhouse gases, because we realize that over the history we have been polluting the atmosphere with these gases much more than the developing world. However, not sort of consciously, I would say, because it was not very well known many decades ago that this was the consequence, but we take our responsibility. If we come back now to today's event, the EU Youth Climate Change Challenge was launched, as you know, to inspire innovative solutions that address threats posed by climate change. And this competition was open to all young people in Botswana aged 35 and below. They were tasked by coming up with innovative solutions to the challenges we face today. And we also realized that our youth will feel the effects of climate change, as I said, or if nothing is done to address it. So it's also giving the youth a stake in this process. That's why we launched this competition. So before I move back to my seat and learn, I know who our winners are, but I'm not really sure why, so I would be very curious to understand. I want to thank all the youth that participated. I think there were 120 young people who submitted their proposals, and we appreciate very much all those great ideas, and want to say to all the 120 that let's keep also those ideas that did not result in awards. We want to keep them and actively see if we can use them somehow. On a personal note, I looked a little bit on those papers that are presenting your ideas. I realized they are about transport. They mention bikes, and I can just mention, and since I am myself very much addicted to or passionate about biking, I think that's something that I would want to, tell everyone to do more of. You can leave the car at home, you can bike to work and bike to school. That's what I'm doing every day, although my bike is now in the repair shop because I obviously got a flat tire. So, but normally I do biking, and this is something I would very much like to encourage others to do as well. It keeps you fit, if nothing else, as well. So finally, now then, congratulations really to our winners. It will be very interesting to hear more about your proposals. Your ideas will certainly be most useful in the long journey that we're now embarking, and where Botswana and its youth also has a stake. So I congratulate you, and I congratulate our judges as well, who has taken their time to assess all the reports. And it must have been, I understand, not an easy task to extract the winners of all of these proposals. So really, thanks a lot. Thanks to the organizers as well. And let's now proceed to you. Hear from you, Max.
Right, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There should be excitement. That's what I anticipate. Are we excited?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be. This is a milestone. Your Excellency, let me thank you very much and acknowledge your presence and say that all protocol is observed. And also, thanks to all the participants, the media. Appreciate your presence. Right, climate change. I must say that personally I'm quite passionate about climate change. It's one of the areas that I've come to appreciate over the years, from an academic perspective, but also from a social and personal perspective. I've always seen that there's need for us to have a collective responsibility of tackling climate change. It's not for somebody else, it's really about us as a collective in terms of how we address it. So from a judge's perspective, just to reflect, the ambassador has already stated that, yeah, we did get about 120 submissions. Very interesting, I must say, and very challenging. We had to apply ourselves, including having to go back and do a bit more research. Because regardless of how much you've been able to read around climate change, I always find that there's always something that comes in that is new. And it always comes in with the fact that, there's a whole lot of evolution around technology, around solutions, around new ways which are being discovered on a daily basis in terms of how do you go about and find holistic means of addressing this issue of climate change. So first and foremost, I must say that the competition as it was very good in terms of how it was arranged. I come from a background where I deal with a lot of administration of competitions, with this specific view of finding where the best solutions are going to be able to come from. I must say that of late we have found that one of the best or one of the fastest ways of quickly evolving or catapulting an idea into a business model or a business idea that can really sort of attract funding and be implemented and then become successful in a commercial world. It's pretty much through these competitions. They've become very much global in terms of approach, and they, from my observation, they have basically cut the whole period that it takes from a conventional way of developing an idea in a conventional laboratory setup to an iterative process to a prototype to eventually finding means through which you can be able to get into the commercial domain. So I think we have found that they mainly bring what I call a crowdsourcing kind of approach, where you collectively find ways of getting a lot of ideas within a short space of time from a whole lot of different perspectives, and allow people to be able to interrogate those ideas with the view that the best ones can quickly be progressed into the commercial space. So we're looking mainly for what I'd call the relevance in this particular case. As the competition was, the key word here is innovative ideas. And I think the other key word is climate change. So I think what comes out first then is, what is climate change? We need to be able to appreciate whether you have got an understanding of what climate change from the onset. In my perspective, climate change speaks in two fronts. You've got mitigation, which pretty much talks to talking to what is it that you do to avert against that which causes climate change. In this particular case, we're talking about greenhouse gases. So under this particular ambit, there's so much that is possible or that is feasible that can be done. That to a large extent, you find that most of the initiatives in this space pretty much require a substantial level of how can I put it, heavy lifting. This is where you talk about your green energy or renewable energies. You talk about issues around energy efficiencies. So it's really the extent through which not only at individual or corporate perspective, but governments and basically ecosystems and countries at large are pretty much trying to see how is it that they can be able to take this mammoth task. And I think from some of the global conventions that we've come to appreciate, they've been basically trying to talk about around this idea of how do we address this issue of mitigating against climate change, specifically talking to cutting down or finding a way within which you can be able to reverse the effects of the greenhouse gases, which in actual fact cause the climate change. The second leg around that is what is called climate adaptation. Now, adaptation is really around a response, the response to the impact that are caused by climate change. So as you can imagine, you mitigate against the gases that cause climate change, and then climate change has got impacts that affect all of us. Now, adaptation is really around how do you address those challenges or those impacts that are brought in by climate change. So pretty much within that context is where we're looking in terms of the level of understanding by the submissions in terms of are they really talking to what is being requested. So that's really in the context of what we're looking at. On issues of against the impact, there's a whole lot of issues. I can't name them all. There's issues of food security. There's issues of how do you, for example, start producing that which is relevant and that which you need, and not necessarily in excess. So there's a whole lot of issues around there, and I think pretty much the submission that we go to are pretty much talking to those. I must say that there were very few that were a little bit out of context or basically sort of touching into the both elements. And we found that there was a lot of relevance in the context of the submissions. But, that basically gave you the bare minimum in terms of, well, do you understand what the whole thing is about? So, if you had that, it's a given. That basically says that you've got something going. I remember, as per the competition, there was also categories that we're supposed to look at. I won't go into the categories because it's pretty much what you applied yourself on. But when you're talking about an innovative idea, to a large extent for us, we're looking at other aspects beyond you understanding what it's all about. We're looking at whether it's something that is technically feasible. Some people can be able to talk about something that is not technically feasible. And technical feasibility here, I'm talking about whether it can be done within the context of what we know in nature. Or whether you're talking about things that are out of context. Some people often talk about what we call perpetual motion machines, which have been talked about, have been researched for a lot of years, but nothing has come out of those yet. I'm just giving an example. Maybe one day somebody will be able to come up with a perpetual motion machine that will have an impact. So all I'm saying here is that the aspect of technical feasibility was very much critical to that. The other aspect that we're looking at is, who is actually going to do it? Often you find these proposals that are very superfluous in terms of who needs to do what, just hazy, just talking about a whole lot of things, and nothing's really coming out. And I think that really, in my view, is something that I thought maybe it's something that we need to capacitate a lot in terms of the approach to competitions. Because the whole essence, as I said, is to be able to succinctly and very practically put out that which you want to do to address a challenge within a very, within the 2 pages, pretty much. And often you find that if you go through the 2 pages and it's pretty much talking to backgrounds, pretty much talking to theoretical stuff, it doesn't really get to the context. That was something that we found not to be very much relevant. The other thing we looked at is the impact. Yes, what is going to be the impact? We all know that climate change impacts society, and basically that had to come out. You need to be able to appreciate if you implement solution A, what is the impact from solution A, and where is it impacting, and how much is that impact going to be? The next thing that we looked at is the issue of timelines. You can have a brilliant idea, but if you really can't put it into context in terms of what it will take in terms of time for you to be able to achieve it, it's as good as dead, because basically you're never going to get it off the ground. So we appreciated the fact that you should talk to, this is where we start, and this is where we end. I've got an idea, this is the process that I take it through, and this is where the impact is going to, this is where the solution is going to have an impact. So pretty much that's really the essence of what it is that we want to look at. But I must say that from the diversity of the applications that we saw, they were very much interesting in the context that I think quite a lot of them brought in an element of acquiring and using some form of another of a technology. There were a few that were basically trying to dig deep into bringing out the level of understanding. Often we say climate change is something that will be addressed mainly by the technocrats, but I think there were some submissions that I found to be talking to, going back to our roots, talking to our inherent leaderships in our communities, who one or the other have means, especially when it comes to adaptation, have devised means or are devising means that is allowing them to be able to overcome the impacts of the effects of climate change. So I found that to be very unique and to be very encouraging, especially as it is, as already noted, that we are being impacted quite severely by the effects of climate change. And as often people say, the worst is yet to come unless we do something. So I think based on that collective, moving from 120 to 3 winners was always going to be a challenge, and also having to appreciate the differences in approach and perspective from judges who have got different levels of perspective and background. I found that it brought in a lot of discussion and energy in terms of how do we really bring it down to 3. I always say that if I were to be one person to do it, that wouldn't be enough. I think when you have to try to sift out of that level of complexity, you need different perspectives. When you want to be able to find something that is really going to have an impact on a broader context, you need that level of crowdsourcing, you need that level of differences in perspective to allow you to interrogate to a point where you can collectively be able to say that you've come to an agreement in terms of which initiative really deserves to win the competition. But as I already said, the process of innovation is quite an evolving one. Often going to a point where you win a competition is just, you're basically saying it's just the beginning. Because basically, if you are saying to have won, it means that the hard work begins. You've studied what you have to state, you've pitched your idea, and people have been able to hear what it is that you are saying. Now put it into practice. So that's the real test. And then often again, I always say that if you get into a competition and then everybody wins, and then you feel like I've been left out, it's all about introspective, going back to the drawing board and say, okay, fine, what is it that I went on? It's probably possibly just that you did not communicate that which you needed to communicate. Because like I said, there was a whole lot of submissions where basically you go through the 2 pages and then you say, but what are we saying here? There's a whole lot of text and there's a whole lot of talk, but I'm not getting the gist of it. Where is the solution? Where is the innovative solution? Whom is it going to impact on? Or what is it going to impact on? There was a whole lot of the ones that were basically very academic, I must say. And that's why I said we had to go back and do some research. Very academic and very correct in the context that they were brought in. But not necessarily saying anything about what is going to be done or who is going to do what and where is it going to have an impact and is it feasible. And if you apply it for yourself, especially when it comes to numbers, I think the numbers really is another thing that was quite critical. If you can be able to bring down a solution to a point where you say, look, this is what it's going to take for me to take it from here to there, it's still pretty much a black hole. Remember, it was really around you to be able to put into perspective that you can drive it, you can have it, make it happen, you can bring it to surface. If it's not coming out from you, then the question becomes, who is it going to come out from? So I think with those few years, ladies and gentlemen, let me commend you and congratulate all of you that have been part of this process. I must say, as I said when I started, very interesting, very exciting submissions. And for me, that says that there's a whole lot of innovative ideas that if well thought through and if put into effect, we are likely to see a whole lot of new initiatives that are basically talking to our own challenges here, being able to be progressed and who knows what. As I said, the bigger picture is really around cashing in, having a commercial perspective into it and ensuring that what gets implemented then has got a bigger impact at economic level, at international level. Those are the ideas that we're looking for. And I appreciate the fact that we are talking to an ecosystem that is pretty much at a nascent stage. We want to be able to grow an ecosystem which basically talks the whole value chain around climate change, whereby beyond you having been able to conceptualize an idea, you have got means through which you can then be able to step into building that prototype, getting to a point where you can test it, where you can be able to do iterations, and where you can now then be able to get that very person who's going to say, I'm interested in investing in you to be able to propel this idea to be commercially viable. So with those few words, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you once again, and I wish you all the very best, and hope that winners or losers, we're all winners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Suddenly I realize I have too many tasks. Unfortunately, it's only me who knows who is who. Isn't it nice? I'm sure that you want to be me. Okay, I'm not going to spoil it for our winners because they know best their projects and they will have the opportunity to tell us what it is that they proposed, and we will be able to realize why they are winners from their presentations. So I'm going to start it the way we do it with our beauty contest. You start with sometimes they start with number 10, and then you go back into the roots, and then number 5 until you get to number 3. But I think our good judges had all the tasks of having to sift through those numbers. So we are lucky, we only have to start from number 3 and then 2 and our overall winner. So Ambassador Salek will hand over the prize to the person who will be the 3rd best winner, then the 2nd best winner, and our grand prize winner. And then I think we will then have a, let me see if I would like to. Yes, after the, yes. And then you will, then according to the same way that we have said number 3, 2, 1, then you will all come, number 3 will come and give us a synopsis of their project, just like that, and then we'll have a photo opportunity to be with our winners and with our ambassador and with our judges and all of us. So let me not spoil it. We have a 3rd prize winner. I think it's someone that we know very well. He's someone that we know very well. I've seen him on TV. So our man, Mr. Hamid Zeus. Did you say Zeus or Zeus? Zeus Banzi. Yes.
Should we hand this to prize?
Yes.
Prize first.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. You want to give it all? Should you just go ahead?
Yeah, let's do the
Yes.
photo ops first and then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
So we go to.
Photo ops and then this one. But then that means it's you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which one are you?
No, I was thinking that it's better when we are done with all the winners, then they will then from the number 3 give an explanation of their concept, and then after the 12 we will have the photo opportunity. And then of course we would love to see what it is that is in those small bags. Okay. Now I go to my 2nd prize winner. I hope they are all here. There is someone with a very nice name, Nick or Nicholas Selemo. Another one's a really homeboy again. Yes. Hey.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Selemo, I think I can come to your house later today. And of course we have our grand prize winner. I believe it's a lady. Her name is Maua Yes.
Yeah,
All the 3 contestants. Yes. And then maybe okay. Yeah. You want to do yes, okay. Thank you, Ma. Wow. Thank you very much.